read it yourself
8, 9, and 10.
and explain the contradiction between the copy you have and this one, please.
Well, all right. This is
We want to get done with this as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. But be ye not called rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and ye are all brethren, and all ye are brethren. This sounds like King James. Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. Now, I don't see that you have posed any problem here. It all makes sense.
Maybe I want to ask the question, Christ is putting himself on an equal level with them, not above, not under. And he put God as the master for all. That is my point.
Well, of course, God is above man.
Oh, that minute he was man?
No,
is this what you're saying?
I say God is above man, and this is simply implied.
Is this Jesus the man talking, or Jesus the God?
It is the God-man Jesus who is talking.
I think we're going to get out of this
point. This point is done for me.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. But keep reading that book. It'll do you good.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Hamid.
I don't know Greek. I'm sorry.
Well, it's not too late to learn. You look smart.
Well, thank you. It's a compliment.
When I agreed to come to be here this evening, it was a lot of the motivation was that I could learn myself, because what I know about Islam I could probably put in a thimble, and so I come as a learner. And I was surprised and amazed as I listened to Dr. Morsi and Dr. Badawi how much I, from my particular approach to Christianity, really agree with what they're saying. And whenever we're in a dialogue like this, I look for common understandings, and I look for also a way to articulate the differences that we have. And I do see the differences too. A thing that I want, a different perspective that I want to bring to this, I come as a Christian, a part of the Roman Catholic tradition of the Christian church. And in the Roman Catholic tradition, we see not just the Bible as a source of God's revelation, but we see two sources of revelation. What we call tradition, the tradition of the community, and the scriptures. And we see that the scriptures grow out of the tradition of the community. The Christian scriptures were not written down immediately. They were attempts to articulate what was being passed on in the tradition of the community for several years before they were written down. And they were written down in various sources, which sources were then used to put together the Christian scriptures that we now have. I say that because for me, those two sources of revelation are ongoing, so that we always need to go back to the scriptures to have a steady, constant source, but we always need to be interpreting the scriptures in the light of revelation that takes place within the faith community to continue to see how God is speaking with us now and working with us now. So to take, from that perspective, I see the scriptures, the Christian scriptures as well as the Hebrew scriptures, as an attempt by those who were following Jesus Christ, or those who were identifying with the covenant of Moses, an attempt of those people to articulate their experience of God. And so, when you go into those scriptures, you can find out, if you start analyzing the verses here and there, you can find contradictions, you can find little things that just don't seem to fit. Fine. So what? For me, I'm more concerned to find what is the overall message of Jesus Christ, what is the message of our God, and how does that apply to the lives of our people. To come down to this issue of salvation, I hear a lot of talk as if from the Christian perspective we believe that God needed this blood sacrifice to satisfy himself. I, for one, do not believe that. I believe that God sent or let me put it, that God came among us in the person of Jesus Christ to show what real integrity is, to show what it is to live the kingdom of God. And the natural result of that, as with so many of the other prophets, was the cross. And the fact that Jesus maintained his integrity all the way through the cross and through death, and then as we believe that because of that deep, deep integrity, rose to new life. That's where I see the salvation in the cross. Not that God was needing some kind of blood sacrifice. I think of a man like, in our own time, like Oscar Romero, who was an archbishop of San Salvador, in El Salvador. And he became archbishop there in 1977. And he came into a situation that was highly political, where the poor of his country were very much oppressed by the few who were wealthy and controlled the land. And what he did was, he came in there with a high level of integrity and spoke out clearly for the poor. That he took a position of justice, of love. He knew full well that he was taking a very unpopular position and that it was probably going to lead to his death. He began to talk about, if they kill me, when they kill me. That wasn't because he wanted to die. What he wanted was integrity. What he wanted was justice. What he wanted was the kingdom of God. But he knew full well that this could lead to death. And I think it's the same kind of thing with God manifest in Jesus Christ. That it wasn't like God wanted.
May I suggest to conclude this thought?
It wasn't like God wanted the death of Jesus, but that God wanted integrity and justice. He wanted the kingdom of God. But the result of wanting that is it brings out of the human condition, it brings opposition, it brings violence, it blood to the cross.
Thank you.
And in that we find the salvation.
Thank you. That was a comment, so thanks.
Any comment from
I would kindly ask you just to be patient with it, okay?
I'll try to.
I want to build on that.
I'll let you talk. Just a second. Go ahead.
Build on that for the sake of the dialogue.
Yes.
I think both of us are coming some way in trying to say that the Christian perspective on this so-called substitutionary atonement, blood sacrifice, we've had some problems with that, I think. The way we've articulated it. We've made God out into this vengeful father who needs to take out his wrath someplace, and that is a problem with our tradition. And we are trying to find new ways to articulate what we think is still the truth about divine love, that it must suffer and that it does suffer. So some of that old language that belongs to the cult, that belongs to the sacrificial world that we no longer identify with, we're willing, many of us, are willing to leave that behind for a new understanding of what we mean by salvation centered in the cross, which still is central to who we are as Christians.
Thank you. Hamza?
Yes, I'd just like to just say a word to that concept that was being tossed around about God-man business. Fully God, fully man. And I think I spoke with Dr. Archer about this last night in terms of the Greek.
Let's stick to salvation, okay?
I think it needs to be clarified, because if the facts are here and we can agree on that, at least we'll move on. If not, I'll just put it there for the record. Here in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 21, it says, "For since by man came death, by man came a resurrection unto life." So now this idea of by man came death and by man came resurrection, there's a Greek term there, which Dr. Archer agrees is both the same terms for Adam, who sinned, and Jesus, who alleviated that sin, anthropos, meaning man. Got nothing to do with God at all. He'll agree to that. That's the point I wanted to clarify there.
Well,
now,
of course,
you can get to that if you like.
Yeah. When I say I agree, that I mean that anthropos is used both of the first Adam and the second Adam. There's no question about that.
It means Christ is man just like Adam is man. That's what it means there. This is Paul's understanding. He doesn't understand that Jesus is divine.
Okay,
Well,
get to the
Paul
other
does.
point.
He sure does.
Get to the other point, please.
See the concept of salvation as it's understood in the New Testament.